Nice to see everyone on this Thursday, the first on the offense of 2023. On behalf of Renewed, I hope you're all getting off to the year, the beginning of the year successfully. Alicia and Kirsty and I were talking about how January's doing when we got on the call a little bit earlier. So, it's not always guaranteed that things work out the way you planned, even this early in the year. So I wish you all good luck. So today, I'm really glad to have Alicia Drew and Kirsty Johnson with us, because in one of the earlier Renewed discussions, the topic came up that they're seeing a bunch of their clients at MPG have successes with enlisting their customers more forcefully directly into the marketing process, and then tracking that in a way that generates more revenues. So today's topic with Alicia and Kirsty is enabling your customers to be your best sales resources. Who doesn't want that on this call? So I think we'll hop into the topic right from the top. So the obviously a lot of what's the initial success in this area tend to be related around events, as I think most of us experienced, though not exclusively. I think that's an important distinction, and I think this technique has helped people sort of recover from the downturn at the beginning of COVID, get back to live, and start actually building growth into their events platforms. So, but I know it's broader than just events. So could we just start out with kind of a what's the use case that you two are seeing in advocacy marketing as it starts to expand and become more powerful?
I can take that one. So yeah, first of all, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting us. I think firstly, it's important to recognize that it's likely that your current customers know, especially on social, a lot of kind of other industry contacts that really should be your customers. So for me, advocacy is about kind of empowering them and providing them with the tools and information that they need in order to share what you're doing, and kind of invite them to, especially things like events, but also subscriptions and memberships. So gathering material that they can then go on and share so they can become advocates for you. I don't know, Kirsty, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think for me, I was reading up about this actually the other day, and one of the terms that I came across that I thought was quite nice was seeing your advocates, and whether that be customers, people who are involved in creating content for your products, things like that, as your decentralized sales team. So essentially seeing them as part of your team who can help advocate for your product to then generate further revenue for you further down the line.
It also sounds like, I think from talking to you, there's kind of a universal trend for all of us in marketing towards what I mean, there are more technical terms for this, but I generally call it, all of us in this business have always tried to take an talking to experts relationship on the content side, on our product side. But this sort of makes the marketing more authentic, doesn't it? Sort of expert marketers talking to expert customers almost. I have the feeling as people get more sophisticated about this, the result is a much higher level of marketing interaction. Are you seeing that with some of your customers?
Exactly. So it's like that peer-to-peer interactions that you really want to help facilitate and encourage. I think there's definitely still room for that kind of more influential, inspirational kind of, I guess, person who's within a community that a lot of people will follow, and kind of, if they were to promote your event for you or subscriptions product, you would get engagement. But ultimately, this is about people selling to their peers, to their network, and influencing their connections. And I think a lot of that comes to people ultimately trust people more than they do brands and businesses and companies. And it's really trying, as you say, that authenticity piece is really important. especially as kind of, globally we're seeing tighter data laws as well. So it's actually harder for us as businesses to reach people in the way that we have been doing. So it's really, forcing us to understand our customers and other key advocates around our products better and connect with them to enable them to help us acquire further customers.
Could you maybe just, I think the term advocacy marketing is becoming relatively understood in the marketplace. And I know you've had the good fortune to have huge successes with a couple of your clients, or even if it's only a medium success, that's still fantastic. So it's wonderful across the board. But could you, without disclosing any client information or anything like that, could you maybe just quickly describe a kind of best case use that you're seeing now? And that I know there are some great technology tools out there, so maybe you could start talking about those specifics so people understand what you're talking about. But it just an example of somebody who had added 10% or 15% to their attendee list using that kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got a number of clients that are using tools to help them do advocacy marketing in a more efficient way. So there's tools like Ingo and Glean In and Snowball that we've kind of come across as well. And it's just made it easier to, so essentially the tools are set up so speakers, sponsors, contributors, kind of advisory boards, and also current customers, like people that register for the events, can really quickly and easily access well-designed on-brand graphics to be able to then share on social media. And the platforms have pretty good kind of engagement and analytics as well, so you can actually see, it helps you identify who in your network is the most influential. So some of these kind of connect to LinkedIn, so they can see, who's got the biggest network and who is actually reaching that network, and how many of those people then go on to register and things like that. Wow. And yeah, so, and I think it's, the amount of revenue we're getting from advocacy now is, with the help of these tools, is like really increasing. So, it's competing with email, which is often the best performing marketing channel in terms of generating revenue. We're actually seeing these tools like Ingo and Glean In up there in terms of how much revenue we're able to actually track from advocacy.
Sure.
Yeah, just to put a number on that, I mean, we've seen when we have implemented this on a few events last year in 2022, we were seeing that actually by utilizing these types of tools and pushing more investment into advocacy marketing, it was generating between 20 and 30% off the registrants. So it's quite considerable in terms of how much that channel was able to generate. And also because a lot of these tools, as Alicia said, have those kind of abilities to allow you to see the tracking analytics, we're able to actually track advocacy marketing a lot better. I think without the tools, it's been a lot of kind of manual processes that marketers have had to do, which obviously takes time as well, but also it's much harder to track because you're really relying on those advocates to, if you've sent them something with a tracking link, to actually use that link. And often they don't do that. So it's also actually more trackable, which then unlocks potentially more investment that you can push into it as well to get more out of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's never been a case in my entire career where I promised that I would contact a whole bunch of people and fail to do it. Never happened to me once. But I suspect if I was on, Ingo or one of those programs and knew that you guys were looking over my shoulder, I'd be a much more conscientious marketer. So I totally understand.
Yeah, and it makes it easier for the advocates as well. Like they can, share these things with, 2 clicks of a button, and it's all done for them and automated, and it pulls through their headshot from LinkedIn and their name and their job title. There's really very little for them to do other than, click the link that you sent them. So it kind of removes that barrier. Yeah.
Maybe we can get back to the specific tools and comparative things towards just the end of the starting part. But there are. Do you have any clients who are trying to do more of this without using these new automation tools? And how would you, in your experience, because you've seen people do this, are are they succeeding, or are you guys kind of suggesting, listen, they're great tools to do this, you might as well do it right? I don't, you know, what's your feeling after watching your clients struggle with this?
I mean, there's still definitely things that, you know, our clients and other businesses have been doing, you know, for years, and they're still valid and they still work really effectively. So things that just come to mind are like customer testimonials, producing case studies and success stories with your customer sponsor speakers as kind of social proof, that then, because they've kind of, I guess, provided you with a testimonial or a case study, they're incentivized to share that more widely as well as an advocate. But also then you can use that within the marketing.
Yep.
And I think that's still producing some great results and engagement. One of the things that actually we have been doing with some of our clients is, you know, often testimonials can be quite difficult to actually get from your customers. And so as people are becoming more comfortable with using social platforms to kind of give their point of view and their perspective on things, actually using the social posts as like a digital testimonial in a sense, and actually using that and attributing it to people who have pushed it out via those social platforms is a way to kind of, essentially it does the same thing, and it's almost more authentic as well, because it's in those words and you can kind of see that they've posted it from their actual profile.
Wow. Yeah, that's does the I have to imagine that one of the other advantages of kind of automating this process is that it minimizes issues with tracking, what we used to call sort of you know, unmatchable orders. You didn't have any source code for them or anything like that, so it's got to have a huge impact on knowing where, you know, where those random orders that you can't fit into your analytics are coming from. Is that one of the more powerful aspects too?
Yeah, exactly. So before, you might have sent you know, an email to all of your speakers with a I don't know, a LinkedIn image to share and a tracking link, so you can say, okay, our speakers have shared XYZ and we've got this, you know, these results from it. But with these platforms you can say which speaker and when they shared it, and you know, you can actually see the posts that they've shared and how much engagement it got. So yeah, definitely it makes it more specific around the tracking for sure.
Sure. The speaker, so obviously if you're doing events, speakers are an obvious place to start. Your event planning committee, obvious place to start. You know, both in events and on content oriented marketing, are you seeing people pull other groups of sort of influencers into these systems? So kind of expanding your army of marketers, you know, out there, or what other groups are people pulling in?
Yeah, so obviously your current customers is a big one. So any current subscribers or members, and giving them the kind of tools that they need to share is really important. Any contributors to content, sponsors that you know, contribute to content, giving them what they need as well to share. And also any kind of advisory boards or industry kind of groups that you have, I don't know, leadership groups that you might help kind of contribute to your content. If you can kind of turn them into advocates for your brand as well in a really easy way, then that's definitely valuable. I don't know, Kirsty, are there any other groups you think of?
Yeah, I know we were talking about this actually the other day around when you have those kind of groups of people that you can really engage with and nurture. So the advisory board, you know, for events or kind of key contributors to content for, you know, that you're going to host on your subscription platform. It's even more effective if you're within an industry or community that has like a real purpose to it. So it's really purpose driven. There's kind of a key movement behind it. You know, we do market events that are kind of like winning in particular industries, and often they have a very engaged community, and those individuals, if they feel like they're really contributing towards the product in some way, or kind of, you know, helping the community, supporting the community in some way, then ultimately they're more likely to advocate for it if they feel they've got a stake in it. And I think some of our clients have been really successful in engaging quite deeply with those groups of people. And often it is a lot of kind of giving them time and listening and asking questions, as opposed to kind of telling the community or the industry kind of, this is our perspective,
Yeah.
almost kind of giving it back to them and asking them, you know, for their contribution. And ultimately then they're more likely to advocate for it.
So who, like those, just the mechanics of maximizing this technique, does it tend to be marketing staff who are now speaking directly with, say, you know, the author of a new guide or a speaker at an event? How do those discussions or how are those made the most powerful and effective in a way that really motivates people to get out there and sell for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think ultimately it does come down to who the experts are within the organization, who can really form more of the genuine relationships and connections with those people and speak on a level with them about those kind of, you know, things that they really care about. But ultimately the marketer also then needs to be forming those relationships as well to support them in them pushing that message out. So there's one client that actually has a WhatsApp group for an advisory board, and they do, you know, a lot of the facilitating within that group, but I'm also part of that group. So if there's anything that they need from a marketing perspective, they know that I'm that point of contact and I can help and support them in doing that. But I don't necessarily drive a lot of the discussion around some of the key points that are important to them.
Yeah. Thanks for describing that, because we're all trying to elevate the level of the peer-to-peer experience, but this has a huge amount of sort of management and administration built around it. So that's how you work that. Go ahead, Alicia.
Yeah, I think as well, what we've seen work really well is where, you know, it might be a content person or a producer has a really good relationship with that person within the industry, is finding out who on behalf of their company does the marketing. So ask for an introduction to whoever runs their social media profile or their PA or whoever it is, who can actually facilitate and get that marketing comms out. That's a really good tactic as well.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Are have you seen, as people start to use this tool more, have you seen people trying to develop new communities of, you know, to join the sales army here? I don't know where I came from this with this military language this morning. I apologize.
Yeah, I think the tools definitely help you identify who in your community is most engaged, and then you can work with them to, you know, form deeper relationships or create new content or invite them to speak and or you know, partner with you in some deeper way. But having visibility of exactly who is able to, you know, who's sharing, who's generating engagement, allows you to drill down and then further develop those relationships.
Yeah. I forget, I remember when we had the setup call for this, you mentioned one client who was having particular luck, you know, like working with their advisory boards and expanding their advisory boards, as like, you know, so we have a lot of products, for instance, that don't have advisory boards, but it would certainly make sense to add them if you have this tool, because then you've got a sort of this, you know, beautiful collar of marketing expertise built around every product. So you know, so that I think that's one outcome that I suspect.
And even I mean, on top of that as well, as we've had clients, you know, invest in customer research, customer insight sessions. So not even just like, I guess, getting feedback and input from what you call maybe more experts within those particular industry communities, but actually, you know, listening to the people who are actually benefiting and buying your product directly. And then by having that engagement with them, potentially then forming new relationships that could then, you know, later down the line can potentially make them become an advocate for that particular product or event. But also a lot of what you gain from those sessions, you can then input into the marketing as well, in terms of that direct feedback and product development, of course.
Yeah. I know you both mentioned early on that, I mean, and people in the chat have commented on the that that this is a case where the individual may have more marketing effectiveness than the brand or the community kind of. I think that's, you know, a really important point to note, as several people have. I can see that because it is, it's contrary to sort of many of the other marketing things we're doing. So to some degree, this is kind of going in a different direction. So, but in that regard, so let's say you've got, let's say 50 people around a new product launch or a new event. I'm just picking a number. Tell me if that seems reasonable, but who you see as sort of key influencers who are invested in the product or the event, and what are people doing to incentivize those people to make sure they actually follow through, other than just, you know, hey, Greg, can you send out your, you know, please, you know, that kind of thing. What do you see people doing?
Yeah, lots of things really. I guess the first is financial incentives, or like a monetary reward for sharing. So maybe if it's an event, they offset the price of their ticket, or they get, you know, a discount for their event next year if someone registers using their individual link, and it's easy to track all that stuff now. I think also we've seen a lot of kind of ESG type things. So companies have been planting trees for every person that shares, you know, their involvement in, you know, a product or an event. The company will plant a tree on their behalf. So it's kind of, yeah.
I like that.
Doing good for the planet as well. And then also probably more relevant with kind of subscriptions products is kind of the refer a friend thing. So they might get a discount on their subscription or a month for free if they share and someone registers using that code. But I think because you can now link that up, and you can see exactly who's signing up using that specific link, you can better incentivize people.
Yeah. It occurs to me in doing those things, because I we had an event last fall, and obviously the most powerful marketing in our case by our kind of advisory board and speaker was dragging their co-workers. So we had, you know, if we had a speaker, we'd have 15 attendees from that firm, you know, who could sort of honor the greatness of the speaker, I suppose, or at least, you know, have a beer together at the end of the program. Are you seeing that these tools are getting beyond the, you know, the borders of just, you know, the immediate firms, or, you know, where your experts are employed? Are you seeing any change in that dynamic from sort of old school, like get your friends to show up kind of marketing?
Yeah, I think definitely, as now a lot of these tools kind of tap into people's broader network. So especially potentially with even more senior audiences who have a network of people that, yeah, go beyond their company, are definitely, you know, influencing them to also buy a product or attend an event, not just their colleagues. So I guess it's moving away from, you know, we used to use a lot of like bring your team sort of messaging. So kind of, you know, share this with your network, make sure your connections are coming with you. And actually, Ingo in particular, that tool allows, so when someone registers for an event, they can actually see who else within their LinkedIn network or their social network is also registered to attend. Which for free events where we've seen kind of for large scale exhibitions, it also helps with the conversion rate of people who have registered to actually attend and show up on the day if they know that other people from their network are going to be there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I really appreciate you sort of sharing what people are seeing. I don't know if people are tracking this analytic, but I would suspect from what you're saying, or I would hypothesize that as people get more scientific about advocacy marketing, that the percentage of names that come in that are sort of like new to file is increasing. So you're like, it becomes like this seems like it's also just beside, selling product, it also might be a pretty extraordinary lead gen, like kind of tool. Do you think that's what's happening with your customers? And that's sort of my last question, and I'll go to discussion, but I'm really intrigued to hear what's happening with these people. So you two are great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it definitely kind of at the top of the marketing funnel as we see it. So around brand awareness and lead generation for sure. I think it's important to recognize though that this is not going to replace all the other marketing you're doing. So it's really important that you're still doing, email marketing and following up with people that are engaging. PPC, so once someone clicks on one of these posts that an advocate has shared, they then have visited your website, and you can then target that person with a remarketing ad on PPC. So it definitely slots into the marketing funnel and allows you to reach a lot more new people than you otherwise might have been able to without having to kind of build data essentially. But yeah, doing all the other stuff is still really important, I think.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, I have about 50 other questions, but I think I'll, Helen, I don't know if you want to jump in. You've added a few comments on the side, which I appreciate. Anything you want to highlight that I've missed or that's important to you? Or
thanks, David. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah, we're good. Sorry, so I feel like we've got a lot of MPG people talking, so maybe it'd be great to hear from someone. Maybe I'll pick on Greg, who's another marketing expert as well, who maybe wants to speak up at some stage. But in answer, so to contribute, I think one of the things I've been kind of mulling is the importance here of knowing you're really understanding and making a huge commitment to attracting your ideal customer profile. So your, what we've heard called ICP, the acronym for that, and we're seeing a lot of that being.
That's a new one for me. I use that all.
ICP. And you see that a lot in tech companies with tech tools who want to sell their tools to the people who are actually going to get the most value out of them. So it's not just about getting any customer signed up, because any customer may not be the right customer. So the tech companies have become very smart at making sure that the marketers in those businesses have become very smart at identifying and targeting and helping sales on board and win those ideal customers, because they're more likely to renew. Yeah. Right, and then that churn's lower, and then the business does better. So if you apply that principle to businesses, for people on this call, subscriptions, memberships, events, it's still as important to get that ideal customer profile for all the reasons why tech companies want the ideal customer profile, because then you have happier customers who renew. But the point being in this particular conversation around advocacy is, if you have the ideal customer signed up early, let's just take an example of a conference, for example, a paid for conference, someone's paying for delegate tickets. If you can show that you've got really, your ideal customer profile is represented in the speaker list, which is confirmed very, very early on. So those names and those photos are kind of front and center months before the event. And then that will attract more of the ideal customer profile, because they're the peers. So we had, earlier you said about the peers, it needs to be expert to expert, practitioner to practitioner, peer to peer, because that's what they respect and that's what they want to hear from and do. And then make sure that you get that kind of groundswell of support from that ideal customer profile. So you get that core of customers, and then you get from advocacy the halo effects around them. So the most important thing, I think, at the beginning is to make sure that that ideal customer profile is on your speaker list, in your database, signing up early, knows that they're going to meet their kind of peers at your event, and then leveraging that core to then grow your community essentially around them. So people who aspire, who are like them or who aspire to be like them. And that's really where advocacy has most of its power is in when it radiates from the ideal customer profile.
I
It's New
think just
York. I just had, you know, a fire truck going by. I felt you all probably didn't want to share that with me. So the does so like are people sort of changing? And this is kind of a mechanics question, but let's say you've got a bunch of customers in Salesforce or a subscription system or whatever you've got, wherever they are people like now marking records as sort of advocacy influencers? Is that so that is this kind of like a new field in the data set? And then do you have like scoring for people who qualify or that kind of thing?
That's a good question. I think there should be. I'm not sure how much of that actually goes on. That's probably like the next gen of advocacy marketing. Yeah. But certainly the ABM stuff, this all feeds into the account-based marketing discussion. And yeah, I think it's just that whole like discipline of really targeting the right people. And that's also starts with, you know, which I think we talked about before in some of these roundtables, the data research. So doing really, really targeted, careful data research to find exactly the right people and target them and engage with them and get them on board early, rather than doing kind of that kind of spray and pray approach. It's not about volume in the first instance. It's about kind of getting those core people on as customers and then advocate for you. And then you get a really high quality of customer, and that just radiates outwards.
I think as well the marketing tools are kind of coming onto this, you know, idea of ABM as well, because Ingo released an update late last year where when someone has registered or, you know, signed up to a piece of content or whatever, it allows you, the marketer, to see their network and also pick the specific contacts from specific companies, specific job titles that you want them to invite. So they get like an automated email, hey, why don't you invite this person from this company? So you can actually, if you've got a target list of companies that you're, you know, are really important for you to attract, you can kind of, you know, encourage individuals within the platform to invite those specific people. So yeah, agree with what you said, Helen.
Wow. Yeah. So the Alicia, so that actually allowed, we were talking about this a little bit before the call, that actually allows, let's say you've got the guru in your field who's your keynote speaker, and she says, I'm going to, I'm going to send out all these, you know, messages to all my friends, and then never does it. But you're saying that Ingo's now actually allows you to sort of say, we can take that off your desk, you know, just approve this, and we will pass through to the people we need to get through and get it done for you. Is that kind of how the marketer expert relationship is starting to work?
Yeah, it takes a lot of the time-consuming legwork out of the process for both the marketer and the speaker. It automates a lot of it, and but also the, you know, the assets of the post is still personalized, and the speaker can also edit, you know, what they're actually saying on social media. But the point is that the template and all the copy is there for them. So if they want to just click a button and share it, they can, or they can, you know, add their own copy to it.
Yeah. And Greg, Helen called on you. I don't know if you want to throw in any reactions here. Just you know, I'm so intrigued by how this is getting implemented that I feel like I'm going to get into the weeds if somebody doesn't pull me out. So I apologize.
Yeah, I'm curious about how the platform actually works. So when the email goes out to, so I'm going to a conference and you want me to promote the conference to some group of people. So I have two questions about that. Do I choose that group of people, or do you choose that group of people? And then the second question is, when that message goes out, does it go out from me or does it go out from the platform?
So each of the tools works in a slightly different way. So Ingo, for example, has an integration with LinkedIn. So when you're actually registering for the event, you register via Ingo, and it connects your LinkedIn profile, populates your information. So it saves you time filling in the form. But then that's at the point at which Ingo knows that you've registered for the event. You get various calls to action through the registration process, like on the confirmation page and in the follow-up email with links from Ingo that say share your involvement here customize it all. And then you can kind of also follow up with people that register for the event in any emails that you would send them between the point at which they register and the event to, again, encourage them to send it. So because it's got that connection with your LinkedIn profile, it's actually you, it looks like it's you that has posted it, even though the post has been created and populated by Ingo. Is actually, it gets posted with your name and it goes out to your network. So that's how Ingo works. Gleanin is very similar, but it doesn't have the integration with LinkedIn. So although you can share straight to LinkedIn, it can't kind of, see that Gleanin can't see that you've registered. You don't register via Gleanin. It's a separate tool that kind of sits on the end of the process rather than being built into it.
So it sounds like something you plug into your e-commerce system, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, right. So after the transaction is done, you have this plug-in in the e-commerce system that says, okay, great, now can I tell your LinkedIn audience that you're doing this? Is that's
so exactly. Yeah, so that's Gleanin. Ingo is more integrated into the registration. So you actually register via Ingo. You fill in your registration or Ingo kind of pre-fills the registration form with your details. So it's right at the start and then it follows you through, whereas Gleanin is right on the end. But yeah, that works.
So I was thinking that this could be an application for a customer data platform, but maybe not, because once the person's in LinkedIn and so I'm going to the conference and it goes onto my LinkedIn page and people see that and they click through and they go to the registration page, it can't really tie it back to me through the website can't tie it back to me, but Ingo can. Is that
exactly? Yeah.
Okay. So then if you had an integration between Ingo and your customer data platform, then you could get that list of these are people who are effectively promoting your conference to their colleagues.
Yeah, I think so. We haven't actually explored that part of it, but I'm sure you can find a way of integrating, or at least downloading that data if there's not an integration and
Sure.
uploading it to your customer data platform. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there, to Greg's question, is there, do you have any sense of what best practices are? Because obviously everybody's got other marketing automation functioning in here too. So, we still have Pardot, handling, marketing, and we've got some stuff coming out of Salesforce. We have something that's coming out of our subscription management system. And then we've just got some email platforms, never mind that, and then all the social media stuff. So is there, I'm thinking like Greg is there a way to make sure those systems don't start confusing each other? I think as Greg said, does this platform sort of end up at the top of the pile because it's your very best customers almost, or?
It's definitely a platform that sits alongside your other platforms. We haven't actually seen it integrated with the rest of the marketing and sales stack, other than from a reporting perspective. So you can see the results alongside all your other marketing results. So it definitely won't replace, Pardot or Salesforce or whatever else you're using. It kind of sits alongside. We see it more as a marketing enablement tool, just like maybe you have like a social media scheduling tool like Hootsuite or Sprout. So it's a marketing enablement tool rather than a piece of marketing technology.
Yeah, because you've got to remember a lot of the outbound stuff and inbound actually that you're in control of obviously is coming from you as a company, as a brand, whereas we're talking directly to the advocates, and once they start promoting the event, it's from them personally or on behalf of their company. So it just really supports what you're doing. Obviously, you want to make sure it's aligned with the marketing that you're pushing out, so you're not pushing out conflicting messages. So you want to make sure that the copy that you're suggesting they use and the graphics that you're suggesting they use are kind of consistent with what you're pushing out on your own channels. But ultimately you don't have to worry so much about kind of timing, or I guess there's always this thing, you don't want to fatigue your database by pushing too many comms out, because ultimately it's not coming directly from you as a company, it's coming from other people.
Also an advantage too.
It sounds like this same basic strategy could be done kind of on the cheap with various changes to a landing page and confirmation emails. Just the basic idea of getting the people who've signed up to promote it, it's a great idea, and it could be done relatively simply with marketing automation in your ESP, or having something on the landing page that reminds people to do something, and then something in the confirmation email that makes it simple for them either to share it or forward it or something like you could have two emails. You could have one email that's, here's my registration, and then you have a subsequent email that says, tell your friends, forward this to your friends, or something like that.
Yeah.
Definitely. So that's exactly what we used to do before these tools kind of popped up. So definitely those workarounds, having copy on thank you pages and in follow-up emails. But I think what these tools help you to do is identify exactly who is sharing. So it's unlikely that you'd be able to personalize that thank you page depending on, and come up with a specific link per person that registered, for example. So it helps you, it adds a layer of intelligence. And I think where it really comes into its own is time saving for the marketer when they're, so they no longer have to create individual speaker graphics or social cards with sponsors logos. That is all done automatically within the system. So it's real, time saving for those like conferences or exhibitions where you've got, you want to empower your speakers and sponsors, but often it just takes way too long to kind of get there. So
it would have automated the process that obviously at Renewed, we're a relatively small organization, but I think we managed to get Alicia, your photo and Kirsty's photo just about everywhere on social media this time. So you two you may not know it, but you've become famous rock stars prior to this session, thanks to I don't know how successful you were as advocacy marketers, though, because I don't have the tool, so I can't give you your own analytics. But is it any other just questions? We're just about right on, coming up right on our 45-minute time. So
Yes. I've got a question.
Sure.
What sort of percentage response do you get from using these tools? So how many people actually take you up on the offer of sharing that they're participating in things?
It's a good question.
Great question.
I guess, in terms of, some of the results that we got from trying to get customers to advocate using these tools, so it was quite easy to see how many people did that. I think of the people who registered using the Ingo integration, I think it was about 30 to 40% of those people then actually shared their participation involvement in the event in some way on social media. So compared to before, where we used to get via other kind of manual methods, it might have been less than 5%. That's kind of huge growth there in terms of engaging those advocates.
So you're saying literally, did you say 5%, let's say, of your speaker group or your board of advisors group are participating kind of?
Yeah, exactly. So we would create, so that was particularly for, other registrants, delegates, customers. But in terms of speakers and advisory boards who tend to be more engaged, obviously, because they're involved in the event, they want to promote their involvement. It really depends on the industry and how good that relationship is between the company that's putting on the event and the particular individual. But sometimes you could get maybe out of a group of 50 speakers, 10% of them share their involvement versus, maybe half with the tool or more.
Wow.
And I think also it's just because it's part of that ease of sharing it, but also you're able to automate the kind of reminders in a way, so you're not relying on the producer to include it in an email where they're already telling them to do like 5 other things. It allows you to kind of send out those communications at key points in the campaign based on kind of key milestones that you feel that their promotion of the event would be most effective as well.
Yeah, great question, Tracy. Maybe that just to wind things up, besides thanking the two of you, as several people have done in the chat group already, but I'm very comfortable with the payback on the investment in Pardot, even though it's expensive, and Salesforce. Obviously, from what you're saying, the payback on this one sounds like it's pretty quick. are Ingo and Glean In and what were the third ones? Snowball, I think you guys mentioned. Are those, where are they expensive relative to some of these other tools? Do you have any, you know, any sense where they generally fall on the pricing range?
So they all price in slightly different ways. So I know Gleanin does it per event, Ingo does it per registrant. So it really depends on your requirements. I'd encourage anyone to kind of go and have a demo with any of them, because you've got to pick the right tool for your situation. We've done a lot of research and work with these tools. So yeah, if anyone wants any kind of advice or anything on which tool to implement, we'd be happy to help.
Yeah, that's an incredibly generous offer. You know, if somebody is interested, to get some point by point comparisons, because they do offer, they're very different models and they have different features, you know, so I'm sure you could save people hours and hours of time, you know, even before they get on product demos. So I'll repeat, Alicia and Kirsty, you guys are just absolutely fantastic. I got a lot out of this. Thank you very much. And all of you on the line, I hope you got some ideas about how to supercharge your marketing program a little bit, or maybe some different angles on how to approach this. And I think Renewed's decided we're going to do, because we have so much other program now on the offenses once every other month. So the next one will be in March, and it's with John Hitchcock about it's kind of a case study in what happens when your prospect marketing produces different market knowledge than your customer marketing. Do you adjust the product? What do you do? What do you do? They just went through a huge launch and got very different use cases for their buyers versus their prospects, and had to make some really hard decisions. So I think that's probably familiar to everyone on this call, when you're trying to figure out what does the customer really want. So that's the March topic for On the Offense, and then there's a lot of other Renewed things going on. So so thank you for all for jumping on and being part of the discussion today. It's always good to see everyone, and good luck as we roll into February. I hope all your programs are smash successes. So.